My name is Anna, I'm 35 years old, and I discovered my husband's affair through a text message meant for my sister. In the soft glow of the lamps, I stared at the messages between my husband and sister, feeling the room close in on me. The evident intimacy in their messages hit me like a cold wind, unexpected and cruel, my heart sinking in the silent room. I felt the betrayal seep deeply into my bones, from the two closest people becoming strangers overnight. Joe and Lisa had always been close, but this was darkness I never thought possible. Their laughter now echoed sinisterly. Lisa was vivacious, bringing warmth everywhere she went. Yet now that warmth felt like a heated betrayal. We married young, and Joe had been a natural addition to our family. Now those moments felt like hollow echoes. Lisa often came over unannounced, her presence always welcome until now, leaving seeds of suspicion sprouting within me. Joe's thoughtful gestures towards Lisa had seemed endearing until they unnervingly morphed into suspicion's form. There was a shared joke between them that night, one I never understood, now casting a shadow over every memory. I recalled how they laughed, their bond overtaking the room, and how their secret left me laughing falsely. I masked doubt with laughter, dismissing the prickling unease as innocence. Now I see the rift where love once was. I put the phone down gently, all splendor of marriage traded for bitter silence, the room wrapping around truth. Every piece of conversation recollected felt stained, touched by deceit, rendering my world suddenly alien. How could the truth carve such rifts between us without my awareness? I felt exposed and foolish. Their shared experience now felt weaponized. The intimacy I once revered, now hurtful conspiracies against me. The messages were a crack in the facade, revealing inescapable truths. I felt a tremor of what was to come. The room held a stillness, suspended as if knowing it would bear witness to unvoiced cries of betrayal. Each text was a stark reminder of what had slipped through my fingers unnoticed, deluding me with familiarity. Suddenly, mundane details seemed pregnant with meaning, each glance and gesture between them, a history written over us. That night pressed itself into my memory, their closed whispers now feeling conspiratorial, designed to exclude. I remembered Lisa's carefree presence at our late-night dinners, an innocence that cloaked the reality underneath. Lisa's laughter, once comforting, seemed now like a veil hiding what should have been apparent all along. The odd jokes I missed now replayed in mind, shifted from harmless to something else entirely, hidden wounds exposed. Had I laughed too kindly? Had I encouraged their bond without knowing? Each memory felt like a betrayal. The thought struck hard and cold. My marriage, essence, once unbreakable, now fragile as whispers. To move forward felt precarious, a chessboard with pieces shuffled and allies turned, unfamiliar foes. The text lingered, a permanent scar etched on the glass screen, my heart bleeding in this prison of silence. Joe's presence, once a comfort, now a source of unease. The reality we forged now turned strange and frail. My husband's laughter, shared once in warmth, echoed now in betrayal's decree, leaving shadows where light once dwelled. The evenings felt unnaturally stretched, the shadows reflecting the unease simmering below my consciousness. Lisa's visits increased and each time felt suffused with an energy I couldn't quite place, like a storm waiting to break. Joe, usually animated with work anecdotes, had grown cautious in his speech. Each word seemed carefully measured. Joe began to drive Lisa home, under the pretense of safety, fueling a compounding suspicion in my heart. Their shared laughter over inside jokes formed a language exclusionary to me, sharp and evoking a bitter sense of separation. Joe's offhand comment about Lisa's organizational skills framed her as a vital participant in our shared life. My heart twisted each time Lisa and Joe shared space, seeming to form a unit impenetrable by outside forces. I felt a chill as Lisa chose organizing with Joe over meeting her friends on a Saturday, marking our distinction. Lisa sat amidst boxes of relics from our past, engaging with Jo as if every word was a pearl of wisdom. Her presence among our belongings felt like an invasion of space, an unauthorized glance into our personal history. A private conversation floated softly yet dissociated, its words punctuating my insecurity with each casual remark. Lisa's laughter intertwined with Jo's, forging a bond I found impenetrable despite their nonchalant demeanour. I noticed how they moved in sync, an effortless dance of familiarity that excluded me from its rhythm. I lingered in the background, feeling like an observer to my own life as they orchestrated around me. A mundane task, handing over a notebook, became another instance of their tacit understanding, a silent interaction. I tried joining in, making an effort to rebuild familiarity, but something intangible in their interaction kept me at bay. As Lisa left, Jo's lingering gaze on her shaded more words left unsaid than shared between us. Once the door closed, silence filled the space, a heavy, meaningful absence of both sound and presence. Amongst the boxes, I came across mementos that whispered stories, drawing me back into memories we once shared. A bookmark fell from a book she handled, marking more than a page. It pinned down my growing suspicions. A quick revisit of what seemed mundane revealed subtle hints hidden in plain sight, twisting my beliefs uncomfortably. The sudden realization turned my viewpoint inside out. Familiarity had subtly turned into complacency, which Lisa exploited. A confrontation seemed inevitable, but as much as I wanted to, I hesitated, fearing conclusions beyond control. I observed him closely, like a detective piecing together a fragmented puzzle amidst the usual chaos of life. Jo seemed unaware, absorbed in his own world, making the disconnect between us grow slightly wider every day. I pondered our shared jokes that now felt distant, while new inside jokes arose in their unspoken language. From the corners of my gaze, I watched our dynamic shift, unbidden yet undeniably present in each interaction. Late nights alone had turned more contemplative, with thoughts weaving stories that began to rush in inevitable clarity. Something in the air shifted as uncertainty crystallized into the harsh reality I could no longer ignore. Faced with an uncertain path ahead, I braced for revelations that would redefine life as I knew it. Returning home from a visit to my parents, the evening air was crisp and unfamiliar. I turned the key in the lock, expecting solitude. Inside, low whispers of laughter floated from the living room, chilling my curiosity. Jo and Lisa sat closely, laughter halting as my presence anchored attention. Lisa quickly explained her visit as a quest for academic counsel. Jo followed with detailed stories of their academic discussion. I nodded, accepting their narratives but sensing awkwardness, yet something felt misaligned, like mismatched puzzle pieces. Watching them, a veneer of fabricated ease cloaked their interactions. As they conversed, my heart recognized a faint echo of intuition. I chose trust over suspicion, a decision wrapped in fragile acceptance. Later, lying beside Jo, shadows in the room seemed to sway gently. The image of Jo and Lisa echoed in my mind, a subtle intimacy between them. Their heads were nearly touching, as if sharing secrets. Suspicion flickered momentarily, breaking the safety net of idolization and trust. I clung quietly beneath my doubts, an anchor in turbulent waters. The room was filled with heavy silence, punctuated by our breathing. Jo's presence was comforting, yet shared, a duality in his warmth. I analyzed every exchange between them, questioning their sincerity. A flicker of paranoia danced with trust, igniting thoughts unforeseen. Despite doubts, I enveloped our lives in habitual reassurances. They trusted yoga flows beneath my attempt at calm reasoning. The shared laughter echoed, contradictory to our silent night rhythm. Lisa's laugh lingered as a haunting thread weaving new suspicions. I wondered if I stood outside my sanctuary, looking in. Silence had become my confidant, echoing a concealed trust. The night's memories resembled shadows cast by deceiving light. I sculpted possibilities, seeking truths beneath the shadows. Would this darkness harbour secrets, or heal under the safe embrace of trust. As dawn approached, clarity mingled with skepticism. A new day, a latent enigma. The morning light pierced through the window as I stirred my coffee, trying to shake off the fog of doubt that had settled overnight. As I looked around our kitchen, memories of simple times clashed with this newfound tension, a slow invasion into our lives. Each mention of Lisa by Joe added an invisible weight to his words, leaving me wondering what lay unsaid between us. The sound of a text notification pulled my focus like a small alarm, amplifying the silence in the room. Even as Joe spoke, his enthusiasm for Lisa's visits seemed coated with an unsettling eagerness. His eyes, usually sincere, darted away when he mentioned Lisa's new recipe, raising silent questions I couldn't ignore. Every kitchen task became infused with a sense of watchfulness, each buzz of the stove timer a reminder of my growing unease. Odd weekends were increasingly marked by Joe's early departures for supposedly urgent meetings, leaving an echo of doubt. Joe's schedule eerily aligned with Lisa's spontaneous plans, a pattern that whispered of something hidden. Despite the nagging doubts, I chose silence, fearing what confrontation might reveal about my relationship. Our dinners transformed into sessions of silent speculation, each bite filled with underlying tension. Lisa's laughter, once a welcome soundtrack, now felt like a subtle reprimand, as if knowing more than I did. As I cleared the dishes, Lisa's carefree demeanour struck me like a silent accusation, drawing lines I couldn't cross. Lisa and Joe's interaction seemed overly familiar, a closeness that planted seeds of suspicion deeper. In their shared jokes, hidden glances were exchanged, a language I wasn't privy to, but strongly sensed. I thought of asking Joe directly, but the fear of his answer made my resolve crumble like aging plaster. Silence thickened the air, growing denser with every unsaid thought, pressing down on us. I searched his face for signs, any clue that might betray feelings beyond friendship, but found none. Inside, frustration bubbled under the calm, a silent storm that threatened to break free. That moment, I realized avoidance had grown into something insidious, turning my own thoughts against me. The masks of trust were flimsy shields against the growing spectre of mistrust that loomed larger with each interaction. A sudden laugh, light and airy, from Lisa broke my internal monologue, jarring me back to present awkwardness. Her laughter was an iceberg with hidden depths of meaning that threatened to surface with each visit. I yearned to confront, to dig beneath the surface laughter, but fear held me back at the edge of discovery. As Lisa said goodbye, her hug lingered, a gesture that dripped with unspoken layers, carving deeper suspicions. The door closed behind her, sealing us back into thick silence with all untold truths swirling in the air. Each quiet moment with Joe was filled with unspoken confessions, an unending game of guessing truth from silence. I wrestled with my inner turmoil, my heart aching at the potential of unearthing a reality I wasn't prepared for. Part of me longed to believe in our life before mistrust, to return to the unblemished trust of simpler days. As doubts masqueraded as reality, I faced the truth. This was more than suspicion. It was an uninvited guest in our lives. The breaking point came at a family barbecue in my backyard. Everyone was there, filling the space with warmth and laughter. Joe and Lisa were at the grill. Their conversations seemed tuned only into each other, indifferent to the noise around them. I stayed close, pretending to enjoy the day, but feeling a gnawing unease as I watched them. Lisa whispered something, and I caught a detail about Joe, something personal and unrelated to business. The ripple of disbelief etched into my awareness as I realized how much she knew about Joe. My father interrupted, asking Joe about his latest trip. Joe's answer stumbled over itself, not matching what he'd told me. I tried to mask my growing dread behind a smile, watching them closely and piecing together every doubtful moment. It was the detail Joe had never shared before, stripped of its concealment and painfully obvious now, my breath caught in my throat. The Texas sun seemed to evaporate it into the arid air. I continued watching, trying to keep my composure, but my mind was racing with thoughts of betrayal. My father seemed to sense something was off, but continued talking to Joe, trying to keep the conversation light. I felt isolated despite being surrounded by family, the laughter turning into a backdrop to my discomfort. Every moment at the barbecue seemed to stretch, my thoughts fixated on the sense of betrayal growing inside me. I glanced at Joe and Lisa, their closeness now painfully evident and far more intimate than before. My inner turmoil clashed with the family's laughter, creating a jarring contrast that pushed my emotions further. I tried to engage in small talk, but my responses were mechanical, my mind fixated on Joe's betrayal. Finally, I excused myself and walked to the far end of the yard, needing space to process everything. Away from the crowd, the air was still, and I let my guard down, feeling the weight of betrayal fully. I stared at the ground, my thoughts racing back to the moments that led to this realization. The snippets of conversation between Joe and Lisa replayed in my mind, revealing their closeness. A sudden realization hit me hard. Joe had shared things with Lisa he'd kept secret from me. I clenched my fists, feeling the surge of anger and betrayal as the truth crystallized in my mind. I tried to calm down, taking deep breaths, but the overwhelming sense of betrayal was hard to shake. I looked back towards the family gathering, trying to decide what to do next. Returning to the group, the laughter felt different, as if it now carried the weight of secrets. Joe gave me a casual nod, unaware of the whirlwind of emotions I was battling internally. I forced myself to smile and engage, not wanting to disrupt the gathering with my turmoil. My father made a joke, and I laughed mechanically, feeling detached from the joy around me. As the evening progressed, the weight of the realization settled in, making each interaction feel strained. That night, I lay in bed, unable to find peace. The thoughts of betrayal stormed my mind relentlessly. The chill of the evening seemed to sneak through the tiny cracks in the apartment windows, resonating with the tension in the room. I sat across from Joe, trying to mask my apprehension. Joe, engrossed in his phone, seemed oblivious to the storm gathering within me. I watched him, wondering if he could sense the turmoil brewing. I realized how many moments like this had passed unnoticed by him, as silence crowded the space between us. It was time to ask the question that haunted me. The words seemed to spill out of me, fueled by months of unrest. "Is there something you're not telling me about you and Lisa?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Joe's head jerked up sharply. There was a flash in his eyes, surprise mingled with something darker that he quickly tried to conceal. "Lisa!" "No, what makes you think?" Joe stammered, but his voice faltered as if trying harder to convince himself than me. I leaned back, having anticipated his evasive reply. "I heard you two talking at the barbecue," I said. It didn't sound right." Silence stretched between us, thickening the air as if a third party had joined the conversation. I watched him for any sign of truth. Joe sighed deeply, an unsettling mix of emotions crossing his face. "Anna," he said, my name carrying both weight and ambiguity. His admission felt suspended in the thick air. "We've been texting," he confessed, each word carefully selected, layered with implication. The vagueness of his confession built a wall between us, one I couldn't tear down with just questions. Each word felt heavier than the last. "Things," I repeated, feeling its weight like an anchor pulling me into depths I feared to explore. Trust teetered on the brink of collapse. My heart thudded painfully, a soundscape of broken trust. Joe's expression was impenetrable, but silence spoke louder than any words. "What things, Joe?" My voice demanded clarity, piercing through the cloud of ambiguity he had tried to create. Joe hesitated, an internal battle clearly visible on his face. Yet his reluctance to share left more scars than silence would have. I felt a wave of dizziness, betrayal crashing against the walls of everything I believed in. "I deserve to know," I insisted, voice steady. His eyes met mine briefly. A flicker of something, like a match struck in the dark, gone before it truly illuminated. His gaze dropped, evading confrontation, as though watching the truth unravel around us was too much to bear. It became painfully clear he would not offer more. The withheld truth lay between us, an insurmountable breach despite our proximity. Joe's silence returned like a wave, encompassing us both, leaving me cold but resolute in my search for exactitude. Before I could demand again, the sound of a notification from his phone fractured the silence. He glanced at the screen, a quick betrayal of his focus. I reached instinctively, urgency driving my hand as my fingers took hold of his phone, my heart racing against impulsiveness. "Let me see!" I demanded, my voice not pleading but commanding. A shiver of determination ran across my skin. Joe's expression hardened, the reality of my demands standing against his wall of secrets. Our gaze met, a refusal battle in its infancy. The confrontation turned tangible. I felt its weight on my shoulders as wires of tension pulled tighter with every passing second. For the first time I considered letting go, an idea I immediately flinched away from, unwilling to surrender to his silence. In a mini-twist, Joe relaxed slightly, as if giving in to the unyielding pressure of my resolve. His hand loosened its grip on his phone. I pushed forward as though guided by instinct, the truth hovering just beyond my fingertips as his phone came closer into view. As the screen illuminated, unveiling the truth, I felt a profound sense of inevitability undercut with relief. It was almost over. Joe's face mirrored mine. Astonishment, guilt, and finally, something akin to acceptance. The truth lay bare between us, uncomfortably intrusive, yet freeing. My name felt lost amidst the chaos of discovery. Each morning I tried to whisper it to myself, but it sounded foreign, like something altered irrevocably by the truth. The ritual of brewing coffee had lost its charm. I held the mug, its warmth now cold against my skin, as I tried to absorb the reality suffusing each sip. Each quiet exchange between Joe and I had become fraught with unspoken accusation, the air heavy with the fumes of something unresolved. I felt a chasm between us, each attempt at normalcy faltering on the precipice of truth we had both been avoiding. Cocooned within silence, I was adrift alone, fearful that any utterance could shatter the fragile truce of pretense. I spent countless hours scrutinizing past moments, questioning, had I not loved him enough to prevent him from drifting away? Yet beneath such introspection, a constant ember of fury simmered just below the surface, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. Each conversation with my sister felt perilous, balancing my indignation against a fragile facade of obligatory cheerfulness. A mini-twist shattered my usual complacency when my sister mentioned Joe's infrequent appearances with dubious explanations. I felt a striking jolt of betrayal, as if the foundations of my world had shifted imperceptibly beneath me. Silence seemed the wiser choice over hastening a confrontation. It felt safer, like breathing shallow to avoid inhaling the hurtful truth. Replaying the phrase "I spent my life accepting scraps in my head" seemed a balm to the canyon carved by doubt and betrayal. As dawn crept into sight, moments of hypocrisy were magnified against the brittle facade of domesticity. Lately, Joe's charming casual demeanor seemed more foreign, as if layers peeled back, revealing unfamiliar truths. Our exchanges crackled with understated tension. Joe remained oblivious, or perhaps calculated, his eyes occasionally avoiding mine. My sister's presence became a mirror, reflecting the residue of my unresolved bitterness, a constant reminder of inaction. Every attempt at joy became a parody of itself. The unspoken truth seeped into laughter, turning it hollow and unconvincing. Anger seeped through, manifesting in benign interruptions, a momentary storm of suppressed emotions upon the smile of family gatherings. Caught in emotional warfare, I struggled against an inner tide urging me towards confrontation with my sister and Joe. The air between us was tense and electrified, a silent battlefield where my silent resentment clashed against their casual demeanors. A A second mini-twist came when Joe casually mentioned plans to travel without me, a sharp reminder that things were gravely amiss. Conspiracy theories tangled themselves in my mind, a web spun feverishly among sparse explanations and fragmented pieces of my trust. I hashed time-worn wounds while alone, rehearsing confrontation scripts, knowing unwinding them aloud could bring liberation or further despair. The deliberate hush over confrontation was a relief, yet burdened my soul with hypocritical solace. The sweetness of pretend became sickening. Even simple gestures turned to torment. My soul craved clarity, yet the situation remained shrouded in ambiguity and silence. In refusing to speak, I chose protective silence over unleashing wild accusations, yet fear brewed beneath quietly. Yet each day of avoidance exacerbated tension within our shared silences, and stifled truths became islands amid domesticity. Introspection coerced reflections on past fortitude, but whispers of change urged an end to masquerade, drawing a vague map out of survival. I heard the chilling song of the calm before storm, a tale spun underneath quiet pretense, a resolve both fragile yet willing to uncage truth. The eruption was inevitable. Each unresolved whisper carried me towards confronting the tides within, aiming to redefine the emotional landscape. The rain beat steadily against the windows, each drop magnifying the solitude that filled my home that afternoon. Without warning, Leah's silhouette appeared at the door, a welcome surprise against the rainy backdrop. I opened the door, and her presence immediately displaced some of the gloom that had nestled in. Leah shrugged off her coat and settled into the armchair opposite mine, her presence grounding. We sat sipping tea, the sound of rain steadying us both as silence hovered in the room. Leah glanced at me sideways, her perceptive eyes searching the facade I maintained so diligently. "Anna, something's up," Leah stated, cutting through the silence with delicacy yet certainty. I hesitated, fear of her judgment tightening my throat, but her patience was a balm inviting honesty. The words tumbled out slowly. "Joe, he's been seeing Lisa." Their weight hung palpably in the air. Leah didn't flinch at the revelation. Her eyes remained steadfast, offering solace without judgment. Her hand reached across the small divide, clasping mine with a grip firm yet gentle enough to hold my heart together. "I'm here," Leah's voice asserted, infusing the room with reassurance and warmth. Her support anchored me, shifting the chaos into something I could begin to shape and understand. I realized then that Joe's actions, while hurtful, were a catalyst for my eventual transformation. Leah's understanding pressed a hidden thread of realization, unraveling something deep within me. It struck me. The issue wasn't Joe's betrayal, but how I would choose to navigate this emotional storm. "I'm not alone," I whispered, embracing this new resolution as a lifeline to hold on to. The words echoed around us, each repetition casting away a layer of doubt. Leah's eyes met mine, a silent agreement forming in the quiet that followed. A mini-twist loomed as I realized my fear wasn't rooted in Joe's action, but in facing my own past. I traced the patterns of my thoughts, each one unraveling into another, revealing hidden fears. It wasn't Joe and Lisa. It was my history of insecurity, of fearing the future alone. Leah stayed silent, her presence like an anchor as I navigated these revelations. Another mini-twist emerged. My fear was a hollow echo from anxieties long past, not an imminent threat. I sat back, exhaling the stale breath of old worries and inhaling the fresh air of today's truth. "It's different now," the thought flickered through me, the present no longer overshadowed by what was. I turned back to Leah, whose eyes remained a steady lighthouse in the storm I'd weathered. Her unwavering presence mirrored the strength I realized I had within myself. The simplicity of her words rooted me to this newfound resolve, a reminder I wasn't alone anymore. Our tea grew cold, but the warmth of understanding filled the room, dispelling shadows. I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by fragments of feelings, sifting through each memory like sorting through shards of glass. The more I reflected, the more I realized how the relationship had been so fragile, built on assumed strengths. Each piece I picked up showed me the hypocrisy that lurked beneath, a shocking discovery that weighed heavily on my chest. Despite the pain, I felt a growing sense of resolve. A decision needed to be made for the sake of my own sanity. Conversations with friends illuminated new pathways. They helped me see the echoes of solitude in love differently. Why did I believe that loving meant solitude? The question hit hard, resonating with a truth I hadn't considered before. Their insights weaved clarity into my fogged mind, once filled with sorrow and anger, now etched with hopeful possibilities. Slowly, the narrative of my life was shifting from being dominated by helplessness to embracing empowerment. Each choice I made was like building a new foundation, step by step, towards reclaiming who I was. I envisioned every interaction with Joe and Lisa as a lesson rather than a curse, transforming past betrayals into future wisdom. The betrayal, though painful, gave birth to an understanding that trust is built by what I offer myself. I realized trust wasn't about Joe or Lisa. It was about me embracing honesty and strength within myself. True reconciliation wasn't about making amends, but reflecting on the person I aspired to become. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in months, as if finally shedding a weight I'd carried for too long. As the days passed, I grew more attuned to my inner voice, letting it guide me back to my true self. I saw my reflection in the mirror, not as a stranger this time, but as someone familiar and dear. Moments of self-doubt still lingered, but felt increasingly less powerful, overshadowed by growing confidence. I began painting my life canvas afresh, bold strokes of independence and choice filling once blank spaces. Unexpectedly, a phone call from Lisa reignited old embers, yet I knew my response would be different now. Answering the call, I heard her voice full of feigned cheer, and the gulf between us widened in my mind. She spoke of old times as though they were uncomplicated, her words like echoes of a life I no longer belonged to. But I was ready to draw boundaries, a revelation that reassured me of the progress I'd made. The call ended, leaving a silence not of sadness, but of closure, so different from what I once expected. I embraced the silence, allowing it to fill the room like a balm, nurturing the new beginnings on my horizon. With each passing day, I committed to filling the spaces in my life with love and honesty, untethered from past anchors. The world no longer seemed daunting. Rather, it felt like an open canvas, waiting for me to paint my dreams upon. I revisited old haunts in the city, and found them no longer haunted by ghosts of the past, but bursting with possibility. Reflecting on my journey, I appreciated every bruise and scar, as they now felt like badges of resilience. I knew my past didn't define me. It only prepared me for this moment of self-discovery and growth. With a heart full of new dreams, I stepped out, ready to embrace whatever the future held for me. My name is Anna, and my journey to resolution was slow yet deliberate, drawing solace from its measured pace rather than rushing toward an indistinct goal. Joe appeared eager to mend what was broken between us, but the clarity I had gained made reconciliation impossible. Our conversations turned into negotiations, rather than dwelling on past grievances, discussing changes and boundaries. Finally confronted Lisa, her tearful apologies tangled in a mix of guilt and unintentional hostility. Lisa and I both knew that our paths were diverging not by choice, but as necessity demanded. I need time for me, I asserted gently but firmly, discovering empowerment in declaring autonomy. This mantra became etched into our final echoes, marking the inevitability of veering down different paths. Quiet moments grew to become sources of solace, afternoons filled with the ebbing syllables of acceptance. As I navigated away from what was familiar, my steps resonated with purpose, the slow march of self-discovery. Anna became whole in her newfound resoluteness. Understanding this path was about growth. Pain turned possibility, remained a whisper caught in time, woven into each step forward. Immersed in contemplation, my journey unfolded in layers, each more enlightening than the last. Found solace in accepting the ebb and flow of relationships, not dwelling on attachments but celebrating freedom. Realized that the true weight of freedom was allowing paths to diverge without resentment. Each day became a testament to growth, an unhurried journey toward redefining what family and connection meant. Lisa's presence now felt as a distant echo, an unresolved yet necessary part of past chapters. Conversations with Joe grew more sparse, marked by mutual understanding rather than words. In these silences, a new narrative emerged, one of independence and self-discovery, reflected on how endings pave the way for beginnings, crafting my newfound life purpose. Days spent redefining boundaries became moments infused with liberation rather than sadness. Surrounded by nature, intertwining roots and branches mirrored my journey toward wholeness. Discovered beauty in transition, the unfolding of identity amidst ebbs and flows. Pain reframed as possibility echoed in my steps, guiding me toward future growth. In solitude, I found clarity. Revelations crowded in silence, illuminating paths untrodden. Unraveled threads of past intertwined with hopeful glimpses of future self. Echoes of addressed grievances no longer weighed heavily, replaced by lightness of being. Afternoons became canvases for contemplation, painting a future rich with purpose, not regrets. Whisperings of the past, filtered through time, became sources of wisdom rather than pain. Identified my roots within the realm of growth, anchoring identity through exploration. As each day unfolded, reaffirm my path, infusing past wisdom with future aspirations.